Archangel Michael says, "Heaven is alerting you right now, not through a literal countdown ticking toward some dramatic, external deadline, but through a genuine, internal alertness you likely already sense, a heightened awareness that something in your life currently deserves your full, immediate attention rather than the partial, distracted consideration it has been receiving until this particular moment." Stay with this message. Something in you noticed this alert clearly enough to stop scrolling, to give this particular message your genuine attention rather than continuing past it the way you likely pass by countless similar pieces of content throughout an ordinary day. This message exists to honor that noticing, offering honest reflection rather than vague, dramatic promise disconnected from your actual, lived circumstances. Breathe slowly. Let your body settle into stillness. Whatever has filled your attention recently, set it aside for these next several minutes, because what follows deserves genuine presence rather than the passing, distracted engagement most content receives during an ordinary day. This alert this message describes is not some external, cosmic signal beyond your own perception. It represents something more immediate and practical, a genuine shift in your own internal alertness and readiness, present right now, in this particular moment, worth honoring while it remains this clear and accessible rather than allowing it to fade back into ordinary distraction once this reflection ends. Reflect honestly on what specifically feels different right now, in this particular moment, compared to how you have been moving through recent days. Perhaps a specific thought or realization has surfaced with unusual clarity. Perhaps a particular matter that has been sitting quietly in the background has suddenly moved into sharper, more urgent focus. Perhaps simply a general sense of heightened attentiveness, a feeling that something important is asking to be noticed right now rather than continuing to be postponed towards some indefinite future point. Give yourself genuine time with this reflection rather than rushing toward whatever answer first comes to mind. Sometimes the specific quality of this alertness is easy to feel but harder to name precisely, requiring a bit more patient attention before it becomes fully clear and articulable in words rather than remaining simply a vague, wordless sense of heightened significance. Whatever specifically arose as you considered this question, hold it clearly in mind as you continue through this reflection, because this particular alertness is very likely connected directly to whatever this message is asking you to finally engage with honestly. This kind of heightened internal alertness does not remain equally accessible indefinitely without corresponding action. It tends to arrive in specific windows, present strongly for a period before naturally settling back into the ordinary background noise of daily life and habitual thought. This is precisely why this message speaks with urgency, not because some external force is imposing an artificial deadline, but because the specific clarity currently available to you represents a genuine, if temporary, opportunity worth engaging with directly. Consider how many times a similar moment of heightened alertness has arisen previously in your life, perhaps connected to this same matter, perhaps to something else entirely, and how often that particular moment was allowed to pass without corresponding action, gradually fading back into ordinary distraction. This honest reflection is not meant to generate guilt, but simply to illustrate concretely why this particular pattern, moments of clarity arising and then fading without engagement, deserves genuine interruption now, in this specific moment, rather than continuing indefinitely. Consider what specific matter this heightened alertness seems most connected to in your own particular life. Perhaps a relationship that has been quietly asking for honest attention. Perhaps a decision that has remained genuinely unresolved despite your attempts to set it aside. Perhaps a piece of healing or self-examination that continues resurfacing despite repeated attempts to dismiss or postpone it. Whatever specific matter feels most connected to this particular moment of heightened clarity, this message is speaking directly to that circumstance. Notice, too, whether this particular matter has been accompanied by any physical sensation, a subtle tightness, a flutter of energy, a sense of your body being slightly more activated than usual. This kind of embodied signal often accompanies genuine moments of significant clarity, evidence that this alertness is registering not only mentally but also physically, a fuller, more complete kind of recognition than purely intellectual awareness alone typically provides. The specific quality of this present alertness deserves genuine trust rather than immediate dismissal, since this kind of heightened internal clarity often arrives precisely when something genuinely significant is ready to be addressed, rather than arriving randomly or without meaningful connection to your actual, current circumstances. Consider what it would mean to trust this particular moment of clarity, at least enough to genuinely explore what it might be pointing toward, rather than immediately explaining it away as simply coincidence or overactive imagination. Think about how quickly your mind may have already tried to dismiss this particular alertness, offering a quick, convenient explanation before genuine exploration has even had a chance to properly begin. Notice this tendency if it has arisen, and gently set it aside for just a few more minutes, allowing this particular reflection the genuine space it deserves before returning to whatever explanation your mind may have already been reaching toward. Fear frequently interferes with genuine engagement even during moments of heightened clarity like this one, worth examining honestly rather than allowing it to operate silently in the background of continued hesitation. Fear of the specific outcome itself, worrying that genuine engagement will produce a result you do not want. Fear of the process itself, the discomfort genuine engagement typically requires. Fear of what genuine engagement might require you to subsequently change, recognizing that authentic response to this particular matter may ripple outward into other areas of your life that have quietly organized themselves around continued avoidance. Notice that fear often intensifies specifically during moments of heightened clarity, as though sensing that this particular moment carries more genuine potential for actual change than the ordinary, foggier states in which avoidance typically feels easier to maintain without much conscious effort. If your own fear feels particularly present right now, this intensity itself may actually confirm the genuine significance of this particular moment, rather than indicating that engagement should be avoided or postponed. Reflect honestly on which of these fears, or what combination, feels most relevant to your own particular situation right now, in this specific moment of heightened alertness. Naming this fear clearly, rather than experiencing it only as vague, undifferentiated resistance, tends to make it significantly more workable, allowing genuine examination rather than simply continuing to be controlled by its diffuse presence. Ask yourself, honestly, how likely the specific feared outcome actually is, based on genuine evidence rather than anxious imagination generating worst-case scenarios without adequate grounding in actual probability or precedent from your own life experience. Ask yourself, too, whether you would genuinely be unable to handle this feared outcome even if it did occur, given everything you have already survived and handled throughout your life up to this point. Most people, examining this question honestly rather than simply accepting their anxious assumption without genuine scrutiny, discover they possess significantly more resilience and capability than their fear typically credits them with. Evidence drawn directly from their own accumulated life experience rather than theoretical reassurance offered without genuine grounding in personal history and demonstrated capability. What genuine engagement with this particular matter might actually look like in practical terms deserves direct consideration, since this message is not suggesting reckless, impulsive action taken without any genuine thought or consideration. Genuine engagement involves honest reflection followed by concrete, deliberate action, translating whatever clarity has emerged through this particular moment into actual, practical engagement with your real circumstances. Consider, specifically, what the very smallest possible version of genuine engagement might look like, smaller even than whatever first comes to mind. Sometimes the most immediately achievable action feels almost too modest to count as genuine engagement, yet these smaller starting points often prove more sustainable and more likely to actually occur than larger, more intimidating first steps that end up postponed simply because of their perceived scale and difficulty. If your identified matter involves a relationship, genuine engagement might mean having an honest conversation, clearly communicating your genuine feelings rather than continuing ambiguous interaction that leaves both parties uncertain about where things genuinely stand. If your identified matter involves a decision, genuine engagement might mean actually making that decision within the next day, rather than continuing to circle around it indefinitely, gathering more information that ultimately does not change the fundamental choice you already sense you need to make. If your identified matter involves healing or self-examination, genuine engagement might mean actually sitting with whatever difficult material has been avoided, allowing yourself to feel what has been suppressed, or scheduling appropriate professional support if that feels relevant to your particular circumstances and the specific weight of whatever this reflection has helped surface. Why this particular moment specifically deserves immediate action, rather than continuing to treat this current alertness as something that will simply remain available in exactly this form indefinitely, deserves honest reflection as well. Moments of genuine clarity and motivation, like whatever clarity may be emerging for you through this particular reflection, do not typically remain equally accessible and vivid indefinitely. Ordinary daily life has a consistent tendency to reclaim attention, gradually diminishing the vividness and motivational force of even genuinely significant insights and realizations. Consider what specific action you can take within the next day, not the next week or month, but the next day, that would represent genuine movement toward whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify. This does not need to be the complete resolution. It simply needs to be real, concrete evidence that this particular moment of clarity actually translated into meaningful action, rather than remaining purely theoretical. Another interesting reflection quickly forgotten once your attention shifts toward whatever comes next in your ordinary day. Support during this process, since translating genuine internal clarity into concrete external action often proves easier with appropriate support rather than attempted entirely in isolation, deserves genuine consideration as well. Consider who in your life might serve as a valuable source of encouragement as you begin genuinely engaging with whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify, someone capable of offering genuine, non-judgmental presence as you navigate whatever specific action feels most immediately relevant to your particular situation. If professional support feels relevant to your specific matter, whether therapeutic support for healing work, career coaching for professional matters, or other appropriate professional resources, consider this a legitimate and valuable part of genuine engagement, rather than viewing it as somehow separate from or less significant than purely personal effort and determination alone. Doubt likely has arisen at some point during this reflection, questioning whether this message's central claim genuinely applies to your own specific situation, or whether it simply represents generic spiritual encouragement offered broadly without genuine connection to your actual, particular circumstances. This doubt deserves honest acknowledgement rather than automatic dismissal, though it also deserves genuine examination rather than uncritical acceptance as necessarily representing the complete truth of the matter. Consider whether your own doubt reflects genuine, careful evaluation concluding that no significant matter genuinely applies to your current circumstances, or whether it reflects something else, perhaps the very avoidance pattern this message has been describing throughout, manifesting specifically as skepticism toward the message itself rather than genuine, honest engagement with whatever matter might actually be relevant to your particular life. Genuine urgency does not require certainty about exactly how everything will unfold once you begin engaging directly. It simply requires sufficient clarity about the genuine significance of this particular matter, and sufficient willingness to begin moving forward despite remaining uncertainty about specific details and eventual outcomes. Consider what it would mean to hold both genuine uncertainty about outcomes and genuine commitment to beginning the process simultaneously, rather than requiring complete certainty before allowing yourself to take even the first, smallest step forward. Most genuinely significant undertakings begin this way, with real uncertainty about eventual outcomes accompanying genuine commitment to beginning the process regardless of that uncertainty, trusting that clarity regarding subsequent steps will develop progressively as the process itself continues to unfold. The specific language you might use internally as you approach this particular moment of decision deserves attention as well, since internal language shapes experience and subsequent action significantly more than most people initially recognize. If your internal language currently frames this moment primarily through fear, emphasizing everything that could go wrong, consider whether shifting toward more balanced language, acknowledging genuine risk alongside genuine potential benefit, might actually better reflect the honest reality of your particular situation rather than the distorted, fear-amplified version that anxious internal narration often produces. What genuinely changes once you have finally begun engaging with this particular matter, translating this heightened alertness into concrete action rather than continuing the pattern of postponement that has likely characterized your relationship with this particular matter until now, extends well beyond simply feeling pleasant in any single given moment. Many people report significant relief following genuine engagement, even when that engagement involves real, ongoing challenges and difficulties that do not immediately and completely resolve simply through the act of beginning. This relief stems not from the absence of difficulty, but from the absence of the particular exhaustion that prolonged avoidance and postponement typically produces, mental and emotional energy previously consumed by continued deliberation and avoidance becoming available instead for the different, often more manageable work of actually engaging with whatever genuine challenges this particular matter involves once directly and honestly addressed. The specific relationship between this present alertness and genuine readiness deserves careful consideration as well, since many people wait indefinitely for a feeling of complete certainty before beginning something significant, a feeling that, for most genuinely worthwhile undertakings, never actually arrives in the complete, certain form that continued waiting seems to be anticipating. Genuine readiness, more often, develops through the very process of beginning, rather than existing as a prerequisite that must be fully achieved before beginning becomes possible or appropriate. Consider whether you have been waiting for this kind of complete certainty regarding whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify, a certainty that may simply not arrive in the form you have been anticipating until after you have actually begun engaging directly with the matter itself. If this pattern resonates with your own particular experience, this message is specifically asking you to release the requirement of complete certainty before beginning, trusting instead that sufficient readiness for the next immediate step is likely already present, evidenced precisely by the heightened alertness you are currently experiencing. A final significant consideration remains before this message moves toward its close. This alert, however direct its language and framing have been throughout this reflection, has not arrived to frighten you or generate anxious urgency disconnected from genuine, gentle care. It has arrived because this particular moment of heightened clarity genuinely deserves your attention, offering a rare opportunity for genuine, direct engagement with whatever has been quietly waiting for your response. Release whatever shame or self-criticism might have accumulated regarding your previous postponement of this particular matter. Shame does not accelerate genuine engagement. It simply adds unnecessary additional weight on top of whatever difficulty already exists in facing this matter directly. Approach this moment instead with genuine self-compassion, recognizing that postponement in the face of significant, meaningful matters is an extremely common human pattern, alongside genuine readiness to finally respond differently than you have responded to similar previous opportunities for genuine engagement and forward movement. The specific role that self-trust plays throughout this entire process deserves consideration as well, since genuine, timely action ultimately requires trusting your own capacity to navigate whatever unfolds once that action has actually been taken. Many people, when caught in extended postponement regarding significant matters, are actually struggling less with uncertainty about what they want, and more with uncertainty about their own capability to handle the consequences and responsibilities that genuine action inevitably brings. Reflect honestly on whether this describes your own particular situation, whether the primary obstacle preventing genuine action has been uncertainty about what you actually want, or uncertainty about your own capacity to handle whatever that action genuinely requires once undertaken. If self-trust specifically feels like the more significant obstacle, consider what evidence from your own past experience might genuinely support greater confidence in your own capability, drawing on specific instances where you successfully navigated significant challenges or commitments despite initial uncertainty about your ability to do so. The specific role your current physical and emotional well-being plays in your capacity for genuine, timely engagement deserves attention as well, since chronic exhaustion, unaddressed stress, or significant ongoing emotional difficulty genuinely limits available capacity for the kind of courageous, sustained action this particular matter likely requires. If your own well-being has been significantly neglected recently, consider whether some attention to rest, basic self-care, and emotional support might actually represent an important, if less obviously direct, part of genuinely preparing yourself for the more direct engagement this message has been encouraging throughout its content. What specific systems you might build to support consistent, ongoing action, rather than relying purely on the initial burst of alertness this reflection has hopefully helped you access, alertness that, like most heightened states, will likely naturally settle over time regardless of how genuinely significant this particular matter remains, deserves genuine consideration. Consider what specific structure, whether a regular check-in, an accountability partner, or a simple, consistent daily practice, might help sustain your engagement well beyond this single moment of initial clarity and commitment. Consider the specific role that your current environment plays in either supporting or undermining your capacity for timely action, since environment shapes behavior considerably more than most people initially recognize. If your current social circle normalizes patterns of extended postponement and hesitation, this environmental influence deserves honest consideration as you continue developing your own particular approach toward genuine, timely engagement. Reflect on what specific relationships in your life might genuinely benefit from knowing about your renewed commitment to this particular matter, people whose knowledge of your commitment might itself provide additional, valuable accountability supporting your continued follow-through over the coming weeks. This does not require sharing every detail with everyone in your life. It simply invites consideration of whether broader, appropriate transparency about your genuine commitment might serve your continued engagement more effectively. Examine, too, what specific obstacles from your own particular history have most consistently derailed previous attempts at similar significant engagement, whether related to this specific matter or to other significant matters you have faced throughout your life. Perhaps a pattern of losing motivation once initial difficulty arises. Perhaps a pattern of becoming overwhelmed by attempting too much too quickly, rather than sustaining more modest, consistent engagement over an extended period. Whatever specific pattern has most consistently interfered with your previous attempts, name it clearly now, and consider what specific strategy might help you navigate around this particular pattern more effectively this time. Consider what genuine celebration might look like once you have taken that first concrete step. This message has been encouraging throughout its content, recognizing that acknowledging genuine progress, however small, tends to reinforce continued engagement far more effectively than moving immediately toward the next challenge without ever genuinely registering what has already been accomplished. This celebration does not need to be elaborate. It might simply mean pausing, briefly, to genuinely acknowledge to yourself that you finally responded to this particular alert, choosing engagement over continued avoidance. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final moment for yourself, genuinely absorbing what has emerged throughout this reflection rather than rushing immediately toward whatever comes next in your day. Name, specifically, what matter this heightened alertness has actually been pointing toward in your own particular life. Name, specifically, the concrete action you intend to take within the next day, moving this matter from the category of things perpetually postponed into the category of things actively, genuinely being addressed. This does not need to feel dramatic or overwhelming in order to matter significantly. It simply needs to feel genuine, real engagement rather than another moment of temporary reflection quickly forgotten once this message ends and your attention naturally returns to whatever else occupies your ordinary day. Trust that this particular message reached you today for a genuine reason, connecting specifically to something already present and waiting within your own awareness, rather than arriving randomly or without relevance to your actual life circumstances. Something in you recognized enough significance to continue reading this far, past the point where you might have closed this message earlier had it genuinely carried no connection to anything significant currently present in your own life. Consider, too, what it might mean to continue checking in with yourself over the coming days regarding whatever action you have begun today, recognizing that genuine follow-through often requires sustained engagement beyond this single initial moment of reflection and commitment. Perhaps setting aside a few minutes each day, or each week, to honestly assess whether you are continuing to move forward with whatever process this reflection has helped you begin, rather than allowing initial motivation to simply fade once the immediate impact of this particular message has passed and ordinary daily life reasserts its usual claim on your attention. How you will handle the inevitable moments of doubt or difficulty that are likely to arise as you continue this process beyond today, moments when the clarity you feel right now begins to feel more distant or uncertain amid the ordinary demands and complications of daily life, deserves genuine reflection as well. These moments of doubt do not indicate that your original clarity was somehow mistaken. They simply reflect the natural fluctuation that accompanies any genuine process of significant engagement and change, particularly during its early stages before concrete, sustained progress has had sufficient time to develop and become clearly apparent. When these moments of doubt eventually arise, consider returning to this specific reflection, rereading whatever sections felt most significant during this initial encounter, allowing the content to reinforce your original commitment even as its initial emotional intensity has naturally softened somewhat with the passage of time. Consider, too, reaching out to whatever support person you have identified, sharing the specific doubt currently being experienced rather than allowing it to operate silently, potentially derailing your continued engagement without ever being brought into open, honest conversation with someone who might offer valuable perspective or encouragement. What specific obstacles are most likely to arise as you continue translating today's recognition into sustained action over the coming weeks, obstacles worth anticipating now rather than being caught entirely unprepared when they eventually arise, deserves consideration as well. Practical complications that make continued follow-through more difficult than it seemed during this initial moment of clarity. Old patterns of avoidance attempting to reassert themselves, particularly once the immediate emotional impact of this message begins to fade. Whatever specific obstacle feels most likely for your own particular situation, briefly considering in advance how you might respond to it can help you navigate it more effectively when it actually arises. What genuine progress will actually look like over the coming weeks deserves thoughtful reflection as well, recognizing that most significant matters worth genuinely addressing rarely resolve completely within a single conversation or action. Progress more often looks like continued, honest engagement over time, gradual movement toward genuine resolution, even if that resolution takes considerably longer to fully develop than you might initially hope given the intensity of clarity present in this particular moment of first receiving this message. Consider, too, what specific record you might keep as you continue this process beyond today, some form of documentation that allows you to track genuine progress over time rather than relying purely on memory to preserve the clarity and commitment you feel right now. This does not need to be elaborate. A simple note, written somewhere you will actually encounter again, briefly describing what this matter has been about and the action you intend to take, can serve as valuable evidence later, helping you track whether genuine follow-through has actually occurred, or whether this particular recognition has simply joined the pattern of previous recognitions that faded without producing lasting change. Consider, finally, what it would mean to trust that this particular alert, whatever specific form it has taken in reaching you today, arrives out of genuine care rather than any arbitrary or coercive intention. This message is not trying to frighten you into hasty, poorly considered action. It is simply offering honest encouragement to honor a genuine window of heightened clarity while it remains accessible, inviting you toward the genuine freedom and fulfillment that comes from finally engaging with what has been waiting patiently for your attention. There is one more layer worth adding before this message truly comes to its close, something practical that ties everything shared today into sustained, meaningful engagement over the coming weeks and months ahead, ensuring this genuine alertness actually produces the lasting response it deserves rather than becoming simply one more instance of temporary motivation quickly forgotten. Consider what specific daily practice might help you maintain connection to whatever clarity has emerged through this particular reflection, something brief enough to sustain consistently rather than elaborate enough to likely be abandoned once initial motivation naturally diminishes over time. Perhaps a few minutes each morning, briefly recommitting to whatever action you have identified as your genuine response to this alert. Reflect on what specific evidence of genuine progress you might reasonably look for over the coming weeks, evidence that would help confirm authentic movement is actually occurring, even when that movement unfolds gradually rather than through one single, dramatic moment of complete resolution. Perhaps a growing sense of lightness or relief connected to whatever matter you have begun addressing. Perhaps concrete developments in whatever specific action you identified as your initial step forward. Consider, too, what specific role reflection and reassessment might play as this process continues unfolding beyond today. Genuine engagement with significant matters rarely proceeds in a perfectly smooth, predictable line from initial recognition through complete resolution. It typically involves periods of clear progress alongside periods where the path forward becomes temporarily less obvious, requiring renewed reflection and, sometimes, genuine reconsideration of the specific approach being taken. Give yourself genuine permission for this kind of ongoing reassessment, distinguishing it clearly from the pattern of postponement and avoidance this message has been addressing throughout its content. Reassessment, engaged in honestly while maintaining consistent underlying commitment, represents healthy, adaptive engagement with a genuinely complex matter. Explore what your particular relationship with this matter might look like 1 year from today, looking forward with genuine intention rather than simply hoping passively that circumstances will somehow resolve themselves without your continued, active participation. Picture, as specifically as you genuinely can, having engaged consistently and honestly with whatever this alert has helped you identify, noticing what that engagement has likely produced by that point. Consider what specific people in your life, beyond simply the one supportive individual already discussed earlier in this reflection, might benefit from knowing about your genuine commitment to this particular matter. This does not require sharing every detail with everyone in your life. It simply invites consideration of whether broader, appropriate transparency about your genuine commitment might serve your continued engagement more effectively than continuing to hold this process entirely privately. Reflect, too, on what specific fears or hesitations from your own particular history have most consistently prevented similar significant engagement in the past. Whatever specific pattern has most consistently interfered with your previous attempts, name it clearly now, and consider what specific strategy might help you navigate around this particular pattern more effectively this time, informed by honest reflection on your own particular history rather than generic advice that fails to account for your own specific tendencies and challenges. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today, for noticing this alert rather than allowing it to pass by unnoticed like similar previous moments may have passed by before. Be gentle with yourself as you continue engaging with whatever has been waiting for your attention, one honest, deliberate step at a time.